Peace. My name is Omar Offendum. I'm a Syrian-American hip-hop artist. I was born in Saudi Arabia, raised in Washington, D.C., and I currently live in Los Angeles. And I've been touring, performing, making hip-hop music all over the world for the better part of the last decade.
In terms of record label, are you on sign or independent?
100,000,000% independent. I do it all myself. Don't even have a manager or an agent, to be honest with you. And I kind of prefer it that way in the sense that I can build real connections with people and, really kind of build a bigger sense of family wherever I go, 'cause that's what I do it for, My measure of success is a bit different than other people. I really don't care to be signed. And in fact, I know a lot of people who are signed who don't perform nearly as much as I do, so, it is what it is.
As a bicultural, bilingual artist, how do you embrace both of your Arab and American roots without compromising one or the other?
Well, that's a really good question, man. I mean, I grew up kind of with a back and forth. I was born out there. I was raised here. I went to a Muslim school here. My immediate family moved back a long time ago, and I constantly am going back and forth in my head and physically. So, for me, hip hop is really about just kind of honest self-expression, about keeping it real, And so for me, to express myself through hip-hop would mean that I would have to kind of represent myself in an honest way. And so, I rap in both languages. I take old Arabic poetry and translate it into English hip-hop songs. I take English poetry, like the poetry of Langston Hughes, translated into Arabic. And so, my life being a constant back and forth, you can see that reflected in the music. And as far as compromising one or the other, I mean, I'm not too worried about that really. It's a matter of just trying to do as much justice to them both as I can, because I really think the position I'm in is one where I can kind of use hip hop as a platform to bridge these two cultures that I identify with, that raised me, Arab Muslim culture and American culture. And so that's why I do it, and I don't really feel that there's any real compromise happening. If anything, I get compliments from people saying that I'm able to preserve a sense of Arabness or even Americanness when I go out there. So I do what feels right, and I don't really question the artistic process in that sense.
You use Arabic in some of your music. Do you generally receive positive feedback? And in your perception, does using both Arabic and English in your music make you a more unique and diverse artist?
I generally receive positive feedback, when I perform. And in fact, I go out of my way to perform songs that are entirely in Arabic to audiences, even if they don't speak Arabic, because I want to kind of demystify this language for people who, unfortunately, in the United States, are typically only hearing it in the form of an angry dude yelling on TV. It's a beautiful language. It's a poetic language. It's a very rich, deep history, and so that's something I'm able to kind of offer, and that's something I can kind of help change people's perceptions with, and that's really important. It doesn't inhibit it in any way. If anything, it opens up the audience. There's haters out there of all shapes and sizes and colors, and it doesn't really matter to me, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm doing this to spread something positive and to build something positive, and I think people appreciate that.
And as an established artist with an organic fan base, what is the key to creating and retaining an organic fan base without industry assistance?
Well, I'd say, definitely you got to have your internet and social media kind of game up, because that's the way I was able to do it. I've never sent my demo to a record label. I've never done anything like that, and I've just been able to kind of build, like you said, an organic kind of core fan base of people all over the world through the social media. I mean, before Facebook, it was MySpace. Before MySpace, we were just posting stuff online. That's how it slowly got to build that way. And then collaborating with like-minded artists is a big way to do it too, having the good fortune to perform with guys like Omar Offendum, guys like, Mos Def and things like that. That opens it up also. But then artists who I feel that I personally have a strong connection with, like Low Key, Shadia Mansour, the Narcissist. I mean, these are people who are doing it in a similar vein. And so when we collab, people kind of appreciate that, and the fan base grows that way too. So. But also, I think just being consistent, being diligent about it. It's like, if it's going to be a job, you got to treat it like a job. People go to work 9 to 5. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to do this because I don't want a 9 to 5." Well, you know what? You're going to have to work a million times harder if you want to make this happen. So that's something I would just kind of encourage people who are interested in doing it this way. You have to work twice as hard to make it work, but it's, I think, that much more gratifying when it does.
low-key just retired from his music. I'm sure you know about that.
Of course,
What's your take on that?
Man, I got nothing but love and respect for that brother. He's a good friend of mine. I haven't had the chance to really kick it with him that often since he announced that. But I'm going to London in a couple of weeks to perform, and I'm going to sit down and talk to him about it. I mean, but from what I understand, he just wants to kind of focus on other things, and I can totally respect and appreciate that. I think he mentioned in his message that ego is a destructive thing, and that especially the way that these social networks work, they feed into that. And so I can totally see, appreciate, and respect that stance. He wants to finish and continue his studies, and more power to him, man. I know there's nothing but bright things ahead for that kid, and I really appreciate and respect him as a human being, first and foremost, not just as an artist. So he can do whatever he wants, man, and I'm gonna support him.
As we know, Syria and Bahrain are still in the midst of political uprisings demanding reforms of their respective governments. In your opinion, should the West, i.e. NATO, U.S. powers, Britain, in your opinion, should they intervene specifically in Syria, or should the U.S. and its allies continue to implement punitive sanctions that hope to castigate and coerce the Syrian regime into adapting reforms?
Right. Well, I mean, I'll just say there are very few, if any, instances in history where a foreign military intervention has actually worked out in the interest of the people who actually are there. So I would hasten to say that that's a good. I mean, I really don't think that's a good idea. I don't necessarily support that. That said, I'm not living there, and I'm not under that direct line of fire. So, and I know actually in Syria there's a whole wide range of opinions. Unfortunately, people try to collapse it into, oh, you're either with or against the regime, and that's not fair to say. There's a lot of people in Syria who are pro-revolution and against foreign intervention. There are people who are pro-revolution and pro-foreign intervention because they're getting bombed on, So I can't blame either of them for thinking that way. There's also a huge chunk of the population who doesn't necessarily support or like this regime, but doesn't want, chaos and civil war, which is what seems to be looming for a lot of people. So they don't think it's necessarily worth it. But, I would just say, give the people what they want. And I think that's what's been lacking for so long. For over 42 years, these people, my people, have lived under this tyranny. And, it's at the end of the day, with all this talk of conspiracy theories and political posturing, this is a proxy war between Iran and Saudi, or between Russia and America. When you get into all of that, you lose sight of the fact that there's some very real human suffering taking place. And that's what I try to address and remind people of with my music. And I support whatever it is that the people in Syria want. And that's what this is about, self-determination. It's not America's place to say that something should or shouldn't happen. Neither it is Russia's. People say, oh, we shouldn't have foreign intervention. Well, Russia or Iran are just as much of a foreign entity influencing Syria as America or Israel or whoever it is. And so just keeping that very simple fact in mind,
Top 5 artists you draw influence from?
Man, that's always a tough question, man. I have a hard time picking top favorites or artists or whatever, but I'll just name some names. I mean, first and foremost, I don't only exclusively listen to hip-hop music. I grew up listening to all sorts of music, whether it's old Arabic music or Arabic poetry, which you hear influencing my music, such as Nizam Abani, Mahmoud Darwish, like I said, Langston Hughes. But in terms of musicians, I grew up listening to a lot of reggae, really conscious reggae roots. And so, artists like Bob Marley, Dennis Brown, Peter Tosh, these are people who I have kind of floating in my subconscious when I'm writing lyrics. And then, of course, in terms of hip-hop, I mean, I grew up in that golden age of 90s hip-hop, man. So everything from De La Soul to Nas, and everything in between, and of course, Mos Def, The Roots, Kweli, So those are people that I feel I can draw inspiration from and make me feel like what I'm doing is worth it.
Any contact info, like where people can get a hold of you, like via Twitter?
Definitely, yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So if you want to follow me online, Facebook.com/Offendum. You can probably write it down here somewhere. That's OFFENDUM. Twitter.com/Offendum, same thing. If you just put Offendum in Google, you pretty much see everything. There's the blog, the website, the YouTube channel. And yeah, that's just the best way to keep up, man.
And any upcoming projects?
No doubt. Upcoming projects. I'm working on a new record. I released Syrian Americana about a year and a half ago, so I'm working on this new record now, fully produced by my good friend down in Southern California, Sammy Mata. He's the Palestinian American composer producer who orchestrated Jan 25, which was the track we did for Egypt, featuring Freeway, The Narcissist, and Suleiman and Haya. and he also was the one who created the instrumental for the Syria track, which I released last month. And so, judging from those 2 tracks, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff going on with this next record. I hope to finish it up this summer. I've just been on tour constantly, so it's difficult to kind of just buckle down and finish it, you know. But that's the plan.
All right, well, look out for his new album.
Omar Offendum. Peace. Yeah, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. What up, Sam?